Welcome to Behind the Lava, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the vibrant people and cultures of the Pacific. I'm your host, Michael Tan, and I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Johnny, Ati, and Spencer. This episode is brought to you by Matai Watches, a luxury timepiece brand that embodies the essence of the Pacific Islands. Today, we will be shooting the breeze on multiple topics. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by this episode of Behind the Lava. So we like to start off with an icebreaker, and I'm going to shoot out to Ati with our icebreaker.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Tan. So our icebreaker question for tonight. So we're all veterans here. Yes, the question is going to come out to be, so why did you join the branch that you joined? So, of course, if you're Army, why'd you join the Army? Air Force. So, for me, I joined the Navy. The reason why I joined the Navy was because back in the day, I used to see a lot of commercials with the SEALs, all those different commercials, kind of intrigued. And, that was mainly one of the reasons why. And the part of the other reason why was because I took 4 years of JROTC in high school, and that was Army JROTC. And I guess I wanted to do something different. So 4 years of Army JROTC, I was like, you know what, I want to challenge myself. So when the naval recruiter came and I guess proposed that I was going to be one of the, few that was going to be recruited after X amount of time, because I think the last time back in 2008, I think the last time Navy recruited back in American Samoa was in the early 90s. So it was nice to have that ring to be one of the first recruiters or recruits to be recruited out of American Samoa for the Navy. So that was the reason why, and I just wanted to do something different, wanted to challenge myself. That's signed that dot and got sent out to Hawaii for MEPS, and that's where my naval career started.
I think I can jump in on this one. So I had a friend, one of my best friends in high school, wanted to join the Marine Corps, but he was trying to get contract PFC because he roped me in, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm signing the contract today. Can you come with me? Just so I can have moral support." Yeah, I walked in there and I didn't have much to do right then. And they were like, you pay for school? I was like, yeah. Do you guys have a medical field? Because I had wanted to go into medicine early on. I wanted to be a doctor. It was my original goal back then. Pediatrics. But it never worked out. I think it was, in the long run, it was good for me because I didn't, the amount of work revolving the profession was just, if I know me, I wouldn't have been able to like it at all. Anyways, yeah, so I ended up signing up. When he signed up, I wanted to go straight in, leave immediately. I passed everything almost immediately. So, yeah, it was like 2 weeks later, I was in boot camp. Ended up joining the Marine Corps. So it was all basically on a whim. And, that's why I chose the Marine Corps. I ended up loving it. I had seen a TikTok where they're like Marine recruiting. It's just some recruiter standing there ignoring the guy that walks in, and he's like, "Aren't you going to sell me something?" The Army gave me all these options and stuff. What do you got? And he's like, "Nothing." And he gets up and he walks out and he's like, "I'm leaving." And he's like, "Yeah, you probably wouldn't have made it anyways." Dude's like, "Yeah, sign me up. I could do it. Sign it right now." So, yeah, since then, I was like, I love the Marine Corps. Marine through and through. If I'd do it again, I'd do it 2 times over.
Yeah, for me, when I think about it, I was very desperate of getting away from the island. I mentioned before that my mom wasn't very supportive of my choice joining the Marine Corps, but she learned to accept it. And when I was young in high school, I didn't see other opportunities I saw applying for scholarships in colleges like Chaminade, HBU, or even ASCC. But to me, it didn't feel like I could have been accepted to any of those academies, even though I could have been. But to me, I wanted something that was 100%. My brother was already in the Army, and I wanted to one-up him. That was basically the sibling rivalry right there. He was in the Army, and I wanted to join the Marine Corps because I didn't want to follow his footsteps. So I joined mainly because the recruiters at that time, shout out to Gunny and Tanner Cruz and Gunny Nofo at the time, they pitched the idea of the sense of belonging and the pride that the Marine Corps gives you. So I was immediately sold, especially since I wanted to be the best. At the time, I wasn't thinking of any war. I guess when you're a teenager, the military is tied into war, but you don't really think of the significance of war at the time. You just want to get away from your parents. You want to just graduate and leave. So that was my situation. So, yeah.
So for me, it really is boiled down to the recruiting in the area was too good at their job. It's like by the time I was a teenager, I was very bent on being a Marine because, I've said it before, I grew up in 29 Palms, California, highly exposed to the Marine Corps. All my uncles were in the Marines. And, I was just thinking, that's the path I'm going to go. But I was kind of a kid who didn't have a lot of big plans. I'm still this way. Like, I'm very bad at making long-term plans. I was like, well, I knew sometime in the future I was going to join the military, ideally the Marine Corps. But I had to be a missionary for the church. That was a commitment I made long ago when I was a kid, that I would be a missionary when I turned 19. And so I was thinking, well, let me just earn money with regular jobs until it's time to go be a missionary. And then I'll do that, come back and join the Marine Corps. And then the recruiter started hitting me up. You guys remember how that was after high school, or maybe it's different for you, but after high school, I started getting hit up by recruiters all the time. We were in the middle of 2 campaigns overseas and they need to start filling that quota. I remember telling the Army guys at first, no, I'm not joining the Marine. I'm joining the Marines, so I'm not going to join the Army, but I've got to go be a missionary first. But then the Army Reserves were like, look, we got you on that. We know that we're recruiting in Utah. Every 18-year-old we're talking to wants to go be a missionary. So the deal that the Army Reserves has for you is you join us, go to basic, you go to AIT, you earn money that you can put towards your mission, and then we'll put you on inactive reserve status for 2 years so you can go do that obligation. When you come back, we got you. And so that just seemed to be too good of a deal for me. And I was even probably kidding myself at the time thinking, okay, I'll do this. Then after my initial contract, then I'll jump out of the Army and go to the Marine Corps. And, the longer you stay with something where like, I'm not going back to boot camp, I've been in the Army for 8 years and go over and I want to start over with Marine Corps boot camp and all that. But then, I think that's one of those branches where you can't just jump from one branch into the Marine Corps. You have to do their basic training. Can't just jump in laterally, which I think is respectable. It also was one of those things where the longer I stayed in the Army, the more it was like, man, I'm barely making Army standards. No way am I going to run 3 miles for the Marines. But not only that, but I also got very ingrained in, I'm like, whatever I commit to, I'm going to commit to fully. If I was in the Marines, I would have committed to the Marines fully, but that wasn't in my path. I joined the Army, so the Army gets 100% of me while they've got me. So that's how I ended up in the Army.
And then like jokes on you, because I'm pretty sure all the services, all the branches do that for missionaries.
No, I swear I asked the Marine
Corps does it too.
Recruiter. Yeah. Well, I asked a recruiter at the time. They straight up told me you have to fulfill your initial contract, and then after that, we'll put you on IRR, and you'll go do that. But
Nah,
I don't know if it changed in the time since 2003, or 2004. But I don't know.
That's around the same time I joined. They gave me the same option. They're like, "Oh, what's your religion? Your LDS? You know, if you want to serve a mission, you know, you go to boot camp, and when you come back from boot camp, you go to MCT, and then after MCT, you know, you're going to be reservist. You're going to be an active reservist, and you can go on your mission for 2 years when you come back, and then you begin your obligation."
See, like I said, it boiled down to the recruiters in the area, because apparently the Marine recruiters in this area didn't know that, or didn't know how to advertise that. They could have had me.
I believe the Air Force does it too as well. So
yeah, they dodged a bullet. I'm sure the Marine Corps is looking at me like, yeah, you could have had all of this. And they're like, nah, we're good.
Oh man, can't knock them dress blues though.
Nah.
So I know Prez is talking about open topics. I'm going to kick one out to you guys real quick. So I saw this. It was a TikTok video, and I was reading some of the comments and some of the articles and stitches. It was about this New Zealander guy, and he brought forth a topic. He's like, Pacific Islanders, not our word. It's their word. And it made me think, you know, with all of the PC culture cropping up all over the place, and then as well as, you know, people trying to find their identity and pinpoint origins of whatever they are, whatever ethnic background they're from, or from whatever nation they're from. So it turned into like one of the things we're having to deal with us as the Pacific Islander community and Polynesia. And I know we focused more on Polynesia because we're Samoan, but you know, I thought I'd kick it out to you guys. And what do you guys think about it? Do you guys agree to disagree, for, against, indifferent? Really? Why'd you waste my time? So what do you guys think?
Okay, so I would say impartial, but leaning towards the fact that, you know, this is a word that was implanted on us. You know, you know, and then you think about it, you know, majority of our education has been the Western education, i.e., you know, Americanized, you know, British education, you know, the so-called white man's education, or the Polynesian education. And it's really kind of difficult to kind of go back and kind of restart and rewash and, you know, kind of rinse everything out. But the stance on it is, you know, if I'd use it either way, whatever verbiage there is, it doesn't bother me, you know, the least, but it does bother me in a sense, like, for example, if we're filling out applications, right? And on the applications, and, you know, there has their Pacific or Asian or other Pacific Islander. I mean, back in the day, it used to be like that. Nowadays, a majority of the application has specifically the type of, you know, Polynesian, you know, Samoan, Tongan, whatnot, Fijian. But, you know, it really didn't bother me. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's a play on words, but, you know, historically, in the context of it, if you really think about it, these were kind of the words that were implanted into our, you know, cultures, you know, so to speak. Although that, you know, we're U.S. territory in American Samoa, and so we're kind of like have no other choice at this point. But I mean, in the sense of like, utilizing it in education, utilizing it in you know, on an everyday
in clerical form. Yeah, it's already been readily accepted, so it's easier to use, right?
You know, so
some of the key points he brought up, the guy who brought up the topic, he expressed that because of these terms, it created separation. Like before, most of the inhabitants of the Pacific Islands regularly, before all of this technology and stuff, migrated between islands using the stars as navigation, right? So we were people of the sea. We frequently traveled it, and then once they came in with these labels and called us Pacific Islanders and divided the Pacific Ocean into 3 regions, i.e., Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia, then there was all of a sudden some sort of division, you know, culturally, ethnically. It was these imaginary borders created the division between us as a people. And maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but that's what I got from what he said. And yeah, it is true. You know, there is some little light ribbing going on between Polynesia and Melanesia and Micronesia. I was like, oh, those micros or those Melanesians, which is, if you think about it, it's all form of racism and all form of stereotypes that we perpetuate. But it is what it is. It's the reality of the world. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is there a validity in there, or should we go ahead and do a movement, rewrite history, change all the maps, say we are not Polynesian, we're not Pacific Islanders, we are Sami. You know, we're children of the sea, chicken of the sea.
Yeah,
I don't know. It can go any which way. So
yeah. I don't think we need to pursue the topic anymore, because first, there's a lot of Pacific Islands. There's a lot of us. So to choose one ethnicity and race to represent everyone, like if we try to find a name to call each other, what language are we going to use? That's where we're going to start fighting. So, you know, we have the Samoans, the Tongans, Fijians. What language and whose terms are we going to start using for all of us to start naming each island, you know? So I don't think we need to redo everything, rewrite anything.
yeah.
It's already too late to even do any of that. You know, just to start a movement, that's kind of trying to find, to me, that's just finding clout and trying to start a movement that's just gonna hurt a lot of people along the way. So those are my thoughts.
It worked because
Yeah.
we're talking about it.
Yeah, it's true. Well, for me, it's just a game of semantics. You know, like language just boils down to, do we all understand each other when we try to communicate? Agreeing on terms and what those terms mean is essential to just getting communication across. Now, if you want to ascribe, like, if there's a rocky history or troublesome history behind how certain words came to be or certain names came to be, sure, we can acknowledge that rocky history, but that is all of human history. It's an impossible task to kind of correct the wrongs of all of history. At some point, we have, if we ever want to move forward as a unified people, as human beings, we've got to just be like, look, this is where we are. It was troublesome how we got here, but I'm a big proponent of, like, ultimately human integration, where we all just move on and try to, like, help each other out. And bickering back and forth, like, I don't like that word, let's use this word. I don't like this word, let's move that word. Like, it's just a semantics argument, and it's one of those things that I don't know, to me it is maybe a little indicative of how good we have it. Because if your biggest issue is the words we use, then maybe that's a good thing, because we don't have bigger things to worry about. Like, I remember a long time ago, Joe Rogan made this comment saying, this is the kind of stuff that people care about when they don't have to chop their own firewood. It is like, it just boils down to, like, when you really don't have to give a lot of thought to where your next meal comes from and this and that, now you start looking for things to get recreationally outraged about. I'm not saying that these things do not have troublesome histories attached to them, but that will be this. You can make that argument for almost all things in human history. And at some point, let's be like, you know what? Yep, that was some issues. This is the word that we use now. And in the spirit of, when I speak to someone from other countries and I say I'm a Pacific Islander, they know what I'm talking about, as opposed to, oh no, we changed that term. The term is now this, and that just gives everybody homework to run back to be like, I'm outdated. You know, like, I'm dead naming the island people now. You know, it's like, I don't know. Like, I think that's regressive. On my.
I mean,
Okay,
Yeah.
then let's don't wrench it. Let's. Oh.
like, my bad. You know, it's like, it's really hard to say, but I might take some flack for it. But, you know, in the biology, there's only two sexes, male and female, right? Now we're adding, you know, I mean, it's really, you know, there's all, and then we have this spectrum that we're, you know, the political sides are trying to throw into the mix. Now, like what Tan was saying, what culture or what, language are we going to use to represent everybody? Now, for example, in comparison to the United States, right? When, let's say, who was here first? Are we going to use what type of tribes are we going to use? Like the Navajos, we're using Native Americans for everything, for the label. We're not referring to like, Navajos, Cherokee, or, so it's really hard to dissect it now, especially the verbiage and, the etymology of how the words came to be. But at the end of the day, we're progression, so,
it depends on which way you want to progress.
Exactly.
There's forward, backwards, left, and right. I mean, we can always go up and down.
We're trying to rewind this thing. Come on.
And you guys remember when Moana came out? People were fighting. Hey, those are Samoans, those are Tongans. Everyone was trying to claim the movie.
And
Moana.
Disney came out like, it's pretty much everything. It's just all a combination of everything. Like,
yeah.
Still though, I mean,
yeah.
Not more.
This generation. I don't want to talk about this generation, but I just want to speak my mind. This generation sucks, especially when it comes to the terms of, everyone trying to gain that victim mentality. That victim mentality, trying to be victims in everything, starting movements. How are people going to progress if you're always going to pretend to be the victim here?
Let's be real. It's attention,
Yeah.
People.
Everyone's trying to be the main character instead of the supporting character.
Nobody wants to be Villager B or the tree, the dancing tree.
Oh man.
No,
I think we've pretty much settled that one. I don't know. I don't think we need to go any further. Case in point, we are Pacific Islanders.
Right. In all respect, too, because I saw that video, and I'll respect if you got a different opinion. I can respect that. I'm just saying that as far as when it comes to the words we use to maintain the conversation, that's not the biggest concern on my mind. But it's it's interesting because I recently learned that we talked about our Native American brothers and sisters and how I didn't even know that the word Navajo wasn't even the original word for the Navajo people. They're the Dene, or if I say that wrong, I apologize. But because Navajo is just I think it came from Spanish, referring to them as the Apaches of the Valley or something like that. And so they weren't even being there. Even though the word Navajo was designating them with the false label of who they were. But almost every Navajo that I know personally uses the word Navajo, and maybe that's a debate within their own community that they're having. I wouldn't know, but if that be the case, let me know. I don't want to. I'll get the term right.
Yeah, it's gonna be chop suey, man. Chop suey. If we want to try to specifically, there's hundreds of different minority groups in Pacifica.
Oh, it's huge. I think
there's a lot.
Micronesia alone has 130 different dialects of the same language or different languages. And that's just Micronesia. Speaking of which, I think it's Melanesia. I always thought Fiji was part of Polynesia, but it actually falls in Melanesia.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, with Guam and I think it was Kiribati is one of them too. But yeah. So the phrase Polynesia was coined by a French explorer, and it comes from the Greek word polis or polus and Nesis or Nessus or something like that. And it means many islands. So yeah, we're a Greek word given to us by the French, and they don't make fries. So yeah, done and dusted. I don't think we're just gonna go by Pacific Islanders, just because it's already been readily accepted by the world, and that's what you need to fill out for your driver's license and passport. But hey, I do remember back in the day when we used to fill out other, because they didn't have Native Hawaiian either. It had to be other, and then you had to write in what it was, Samoan. But
You know, when I was going for my citizenship, I put down that I was white because Pacific Islander and Asian wasn't on the list.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I'm white
really,
as a U.S. citizen.
hey, mountain. I am Mount 10. Okay, that's enough.
So I actually stumbled upon this video. It's a TikTok video, but I'm old, so I don't have TikTok. I wait till somebody uploads it onto Instagram like a real man. You know, I'm just kidding. But
Instagram reels.
So somebody posted this video. It was a TikTok video of this kid, Palangi looking kid. If you're mixed to something else, I apologize. That's me in a nutshell. I'm pretty much branded as Palangi all the time anyway, so I feel you there. But it's like, it's this kid like is making this video, and here's the thing: he's just ranting about how Polynesians are adorable. Polynesians are absolutely cuddly and adorable, and I just want to give them a hug and, you know, stop stereotyping Polynesians as big and mean and scary. And it's like, this video actually annoyed the crap out of me, but it's like I can appreciate the heart of what this kid was getting at. Like, he's just expressing, look, I don't regard Polynesian people as big scary people. I regard them all as nice and cuddly and kind people. So the fact that he wants to default to a kind, flattering view of Polynesians in general, it's a nice notion. So that's not lost on me. But number one, like I said, I'm old, so like I think a part of it is the style of the video. It's that hyperactive, like Gen Z zoom in, zoom out, quick cut bullcrap here and there, and he's like doing this obnoxious shove it, like jokey crap, and I'm just like, that stuff annoys me. But what annoys me though is that he's trying to make this argument for, we got to stop stereotyping people. I even think he says it in the video, stop stereotyping, you bigots. And then he goes on to stereotype Polynesians as cuddly teddy bears and stuff. And I'm like, you can't stand on you're trying to push this platitude of don't stereotype people, and then you make an argument of just stereotyping them as a different stereotype. And it just annoys me because a flattering stereotype is still a stereotype. Like, I appreciate that ultimately what you're trying to get at is a kind word towards Polynesians, which, you know, that's good for you. But it annoyed the crap out of me because I'm like, look, man, don't come up to me out of nowhere being like, oh, you're my big cuddly teddy bear. I'm like, nah, man, leave me alone. Like, I'm good, you know. But maybe I'm just a grump. What do you guys think? Because am I just being a grumpy old man right here, or what's
100%,
up?
100% grump. You're not his teddy bear.
Nah, man.
No, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of like in the public eye, Polynesians usually, and we say it ourselves, even in our own videos, you know, we're the sweetest, gentlest people, you know, gentle giants and yada, 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 but you piss me off, you know, da, 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 da. It's the same thing. We push the narrative ourselves. We perpetuate our own stereotype because we say it, we accept it, and we own it and all that stuff. And I mean, I get it what you're saying, to where it's hard not to generalize a group of people when it's your first time interaction, you know. Like, for example, I don't know a lot about like Finnish people, like Finland. I don't know if I've ever met one or somebody who's from Finland. And so I wouldn't know the first thing about like how to go about dealing with them. You know, it's like, is there anything that they would find in their culture rude or demeaning that I wouldn't know or be completely ignorant of, and yada, yada. So you start generalizing at first, you know, you look them up. A lot of them, and then it turns out they speak English, was born in New York or something like that. And you're like, oh, never mind. You know, you're not even real. But you can't help but generalize, especially when they feed it themselves in a what's the word I'm thinking of? It's like aggressive stance. Then I don't know, you know. So I just believe that, you know, they're going to do it regardless. Sometimes you pick your battles, And I think I wouldn't mind being called a teddy bear. Obviously, don't hug me, COVID without a mask and all that stuff. But as long as it's positive, I'm cool with it. It doesn't affect me or me and mine, my family, my wife and kids. You don't come after me and we're good. I mean, and yeah, you are grown. I get it. Those videos are annoying. The way he shot it with the whole moving back and forth stuff, zoom in, zoom out. I'm like,
Thank you. I try to be like, look, I'll be courteous of the next generation. That's just how they like to communicate. For me, I'm like, stop, get out.
It is
Come
too
on.
much. Just walk away.
Well, I'm a different story here because I get used to getting called a big teddy bear by a lot of people, mostly because of my size, and it annoys me. It's a very dangerous label to call someone big, teddy bear, big teddy bear all the time, because it's, one day I'll snap and suddenly my arm just moves like that. They might end up in the hospital. You know how dangerous that is, especially with this very heavy arm? Yeah, I don't like being called a big teddy bear, even though I'm actually a softie, but, it's still, not everyone is on that same anger level. Some people just go from 0 to 100. Some people just stay at 0. But yeah, Ati, your hat reminds me of that bear, that Fire Force bear that says "Prevent fires," like Yogi Bear.
Left of my head. Fine, brother.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
Hey man, I was thinking about taking it off, but hey, I like it. But anyway,
No, you rocking it, man. You rocking it.
hey, there's many times, man. Everywhere I go, man, they're like, oh man, he's just a soft teddy bear, blah blah blah. I get the point the kid was trying to make in this video. It's just kind of like he knows the group that he's in, and if you know the group, yeah, that's fine. But if you don't know somebody and you go up to me and just hug them out of nowhere, like, freaking shoot the shit. If he was to come up to me, I'll be like, all right, I'm cool with it. But somebody like, in Carson, and you got locked up 5-6 times, you go up to the you probably get, backslapped or backhanded. But it like, Spence brought it up earlier, it's kind of like a little bit condescending in a way, a little bit sarcastic, a little bit in there, but other than that, I've been called a lot of names, at the workplace, not called a lot of names, but stereotype, you're the smallest Samoan I've ever met. And then I would come out and be like, yeah, I'm the smallest in my family. And they're like, oh, what? So there's, bigger? I'm like, yeah, it's my old, I'm like, well, 8th child, of course I'm not the 8th child, but I'm just, just to play along with the stereotype, But yeah, I guess she's doing it for likes, so that's the thing nowadays, create content. And I think I was reading in the comment section, somebody was like, yeah, it's all fun and games until you play rugby with them, So, so I was like, oh yeah, exactly.
So this reminds me of a situation I had at work. So Johnny and Ati, comment on this if you guys know of the situation, if there's actually pig hunting in American Samoa. So a Palangi co-worker, not a co-worker, but an acquaintance who worked in a different shop, but in the same area, came up to me during break and said, hey, where are you from? And I said, American Samoa. Then immediately he said, hey, do you guys hunt pigs in American Samoa? Then he showed me a YouTube video of the Samoan kids with a white guy, and they're actually going out to hunt a pig. And to me, it looked like a domesticated pig. It didn't look like a wild boar, because you can tell a domesticated pig from a wild boar. The wild boars have husks. Yep. So I told this guy, hey, we don't do pig hunting in American Samoa anymore, because most of the pigs people have already caught and they're already domesticated in the pig pens. So
Yeah, we don't have wild pigs in American
yeah.
Samoa.
So I told this guy, and he kept fighting back. Like he knew, just because he saw on YouTube that they were hunting pigs in American Samoa, that it's 100% true, like the show Survivor. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts, Johnny and Ati? Do you guys see pig hunting when you grew up in American Samoa?
So most of the time, when the pua'a ia o sa kungavao, o pua'a nga sola mai sai pua'a. They're not wild. They were domesticated, and they got out of the pen and was running through and it took 3 days to find the dang thing. So yeah, they're all in captivity. I know they do wild pig hunts in Western Samoa, but there's a lot more land over there. I mean,
same thing in Western Samoa, high chance of them hunting. But us in American Samoa, I know growing up, I go, whoa, and all the pigs come. I don't have to go chase for them. They're stuck. The pigs are already domesticated. Aside from the few pigs that from other villages that come on over and then they live on the mountains. Yeah, we call them wild pigs, pretty much. But those guys, those are the ones that they have the good meat. So I know one time or maybe two, we had to go chase those pigs down, but we really didn't hunt rifles or anything like that. It was just like we had to go scare them to come down to the village, and then we would of course catch them there or set up a trap. But other than like really hunting with a rifle, no sir, nope. I don't recall.
You know what we do hunt? You know what we do hunt back on the island is the fruit bats that Ati's scared of.
Fruit bat.
We had some big bats, man, and it was crazy because back in our ville, we if I did saw, so we're not, saw means you can't really kill the bats, and we gotta let them grow. I guess we're even with our ocean, there's certain instances where the village council decides that hey, we can't fish to prevent overfishing in our village, and this is the same with bats. So I remember in 2004 when that big hurricane came down, and then there was a big mountain slide in back of our village, the road going to our village. So we were stranded for almost like a week and a half. So we were relying on the regular old traditional farming and fishing. And then that was my first time ever tasting bat. And we actually, to hunt bat, we were allowed to do that. So, one of our omanga, then we had a few guys, they were, killing the bats for the village. And man, these bats were humongous, man. They were like almost as wide as my arms. And I was like, man, it was kind of like one of those things. It tasted like chicken,
It tastes like chicken.
And you know what's funny? Everyone hunts bat, even the Chinese, because I remember my dad going out with a 12 gauge shotgun and just popping them bats from the skies at night. So it's an experience for the whole island.
And that was one of those things where I was very ignorant to that fact that people shot bats out of the sky in Samoa until I went to take my Uncle Paki, rest in peace, when he came to the States that one time. I think I referenced that a while back, where I took him to shoot my AR-15. I had my EOTech sight, and then, he really wanted to shoot. He had never shot anything like that. I just was like, oh, I might have to like coach him and teach him how to shoot this. And like, he just starts popping all the targets. Like, he just pop the can further back, hit it again, knocking it further and further back. I'm like, this guy's a better shot than me. Like, what the? And then I find out, I'm like, oh yeah, he shoots bats out of the midair with iron sights. I'm like, oh, I can't teach him nothing. I need him to impart that knowledge to me.
Also,
So I'm looking at the time, and just a reminder for our listeners to get yourself a Matai watch. This is a luxury timepiece brand that embodies the essence of the Pacific Islands. You see how cool this watch is? It represents our Pacific heritage. And now let's move on to our next topic. So Ati just recently, well, not recently, but 2 months, Ati became a father. And then where this discussion is going to lead to is, how do you select baby names? So we're going to go around the room. I'll start off, then Johnny, maybe Spencer can contribute, and then Ati. So for me and my wife, she's going to say that she came up with these names for my daughters, but in reality, I'm very good at leading people to get what I want. So our daughters' names start with R. So me and my wife, we threw in some alphabet, wrote down the letters in like, I don't know if it was a cup or a hat, and then we chose the letter R twice. So that's how it was basically random. Once we chose the R, we just threw it back in, shook it up, and then picked the R again. That's how we chose the letters for our kids' names. And then we started looking up for unique names and names that people wouldn't use, that are not common. And then we chose the name Renessa for our first daughter. And then eventually our second daughter came, and then Raylin, we chose Raylin. But you know what's a funny story that, the funny thing that I saw someone do was they named their kids Patriots. I think it was a girl or a girl that they named Patriots. So what are you guys' thoughts? Well, how did you choose your kid's name, Johnny?
So we went with the ancient history tradition, went down the line, found ancient ancestors' names, and decided to name all our kids after. Now, so my oldest, my wife named my oldest, and so I'd like to bring to attention that my wife and I, our initials are J and K. Mine Johnny, and my wife is Kevon. Now, my wife named the oldest, and then when number 2 came about, we were going to, her water broke. We were going to the hospital, and we hadn't decided on a name at all. And finally, at the end of it, she was like, "I want to name her after my brother." Her brother's name's Kendrick, and so we decided to name her Kendralyn. Made it a little feminine with the Lynn at the end. But we just call her Ken. And then the next one, it was like, a little bit more thought went into it. It was like a combination of the mothers. So my third daughter's name, because I have all girls, but the third daughter was named after all the mothers. So the first one, her first name is my wife's, my mother-in-law, my wife's grandma, and my wife's great-grandma all together. So all their names together it's the mother-in-law's Joyce, my wife's grandma is Lotoa, and then the grandma is Anna. So her name was Jolana. So that's how that came about. And her middle name is after my mom. Her middle name is my mom's name. And then the last one was on purpose. At this point, we had accidentally had our daughter's names in order: JK, JK, and then J. And so the last one, we're like, all right, it has to be a K name. Well, I had an aunt who lived in Pongo. Her name was Karen Gray. She had passed recently that year. But I didn't want to actually name her after my aunt, because in case my cousins wanted to use their mom's name or anything like that. So we named my daughter Carolyn, but her nickname is Karen. It's spelled with a K. So it was like, and then I gave her my middle name. So she's kind of like my junior, because I don't have any boys. So she has my middle name, Faye. So, but yeah, it wasn't no rhyme or reason. We didn't put too much stock into it. All of our kids' names were decided when they came out, when they entered the world, when we had to fill out the paperwork and like, oh crap, what are we going to name them? because at first there was a lot of friction in naming. You know, my wife has her ideas and what she wants to name. Her naming sense, just horrible, by the way. Mine's is so much better than hers. But yeah, it wasn't. We were pretty neutral, pretty normal. So not too much stock. We did keep mostly a lot of the family names in. A lot of the names tied to our specific lines and stuff. So that's it.
So Spencer, if you had kids, how would you name them? The process of naming your kids.
So with my name, my name is Spencer Lawrence and Harmon. So Lawrenson from my mom's side of the family. Spencer I was named after a Mormon prophet, and Harmon, my dad's name. I always thought that I would like to maintain a tradition of acknowledging both sides of the family. So whoever I have a child with, get a name from that side of the family, probably the family name, and make that the new middle name, then continue the name of Harmon, obviously, from my side of the family. As far as first names go, I don't know. Like I always feel like I want to acknowledge somebody else from the family, name them after someone else, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when and if that time comes. So.
Do you want to go like off the wall, like Rage, middle name The, and then
yes. You never know. I mean, look, people are naming their kids, directions on
Apple.
compasses nowadays. So it's like northeast. Like, why not?
Yeah, have at it.
So
My
Ati,
favorite X-Men characters.
Ati, have you guys decided on your daughter's name?
Yeah. So baby came in January of this year. We found out last year, June, that we were pregnant. So my lady tasked me with the task of naming our firstborn, which I felt honored because I thought it was going to be a fight between me and her on who was going to name. But she was like, it's first child. You should have the honors. I'm like, all right, there was no fighting to it. There was no, hey, I'm going to name her on my side. There's no going back and forth. So from June until last year, I never put any thought into it. I know one thought that was clearly made was that I wanted the letter A. And the reason why I wanted the letter A was because my siblings, we are all of our names start with the letter A, aside from my second brother, Vineyard, which, starts with the letter V. And his name is significant because of, I explained in our previous podcast one of the reasons why he was named Vineyard. But our whole siblings, the letter A. So I wanted to continue that for my kids. And at the same time, I wanted we both understood that we wanted a Samoan name, name Samoa, and a name that's in the local and, all that stuff. But, I had June from last year all the way till she gave birth, and our due date was supposed to be February 1st. And some reason she decided to come early, January 11th. So we were at the hospital. She gave birth, and we were all the way to the last day to get discharged and signing the birth certificate, same with you, Johnny, that I, figured out, I need to come up with a name. So there were a lot of names thrown out that I wanted. I wanted Taufuaina. Taufuaina was my dad's, my dad's mom. And then I wanted also Fergiai, which was my mom's mom, my grandma on her side. But both of those names are already taken. I also wanted Anitisa to be named after my sister. Her name is Anastasia. Samoan name Anitisa, but there was too many Anitisas in our family already. So those were kind of the reasons. I'm like, I don't want to. I wanted her to be unique. So I, did the whole little Google thing. I was almost going to settle on the name Aradna. I almost settled on Aradna. And the thing is, there was already another Aradna in the world. So Aradna, the singer. So I was like, damn, that's, I just like, I just wanted the unique name. So did the whole research, came down, the lady came in, she was like, are you guys done? We're going to close. If not, you guys got to come back on Monday. And this was a Friday. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to, then I, figured out I wanted a local name, and, Adira, Aadira, means majestic, strong. And there's all those, what the meaning of Adira means. And it's a Hebrew word. So I was like, all right, this is something that that kind of represents my daughter, because when I was holding her on my arms that day, man, she almost broke my finger. That's how I know she was meant for the name Adira. So, and that's the name, I settled with. So Adira, and then we stayed with middle name. I had my one of my first cousins. Her name was Angelica. We wanted to name her after my cousin to Angelica, but she said no. But we had her give the middle name, so she's named Adira Linamoy Malay Ningi. Shout out to my cousin for the middle name, and the middle name is significant to her because that was her dad's middle name, and her dad passed away a few years ago. So yeah, that's the story, guys. And if I really had it my way, I would have pushed her to be born on the 1st, because the 1st is my birthday. So, but she wanted to come early. So hey, you can't stop nature. Nature wants to do its thing. Let it happen. And that's my story, fellas.
Yeah, that's good. So I kind of want to.
I like that.
I kind of want to turn this topic culturally. I know Johnny here is Tongan, so the whole naming process for the Tongans, because I don't know if the Samoans do this. The eldest sister in the family gets to name the kids in the family, right, Johnny? Could you elaborate more on that? Because I don't know much about it. People fight, like trying to name Tongan kids.
Well, from what I was told, and I know some of my Tongan families have done this, have adopted this practice. So in Samoa tends to be patriarchal. Am I saying that word right? That sounds weird.
Yeah.
Well, Tongans tend to be more matriarchal. So but with it was the oldest daughter was usually called in charge. And the term is fahu, and normally they would have the fahu name the kids in order. I know within reason. I know a lot of families that practice them, and a lot of families that do not practice it. I know on my mom's sister, she's married a Tongan, and her sister-in-law, the fahu for her husband's family, named most of my cousins. And she was a really nice lady. I love that lady, Anna. But she was reasonable, with the naming sense. It wasn't really like she named the second daughter after my grandma. Stuck to both, or what was readily accepted by most families. But from what I understand, is not a lot of families do this. Like the fahu, if they have a bone to pick, they just pick whatever. But yeah, it's I was born in Samoa and raised in Samoa, so yeah, we don't do that. Shout out to my only sister. She's the youngest of the gang. She says I'm the fahu because my mom's the oldest, so she's the fahu. And then my grandma's the oldest, so she's the fahu. So it's like my sister's always been like, yeah, I'm the fahu. And I'm like, shut up. You're the youngest. We're Samoan. All right.
And even for funerals too, right? The fahu sits by the casket. And they're supposed to receive all the gifts. Basically,
in Samoan, Father Love, she's the whaiwheau. Yeah, she's the whaiwheau. She sits in a corner. Lafo la inga lafo kuman whaiwheau.
Could you explain that for your listeners?
A lot of so the presiding figurehead in the family would be the fahu, and a lot of the Tongan. And I might be wrong here, but I know that there's a lot of due respect given to the fahu of the family. I've noticed it, and every time my mom shows up to stuff, like I said, she's the oldest of my grandparents' kids, so she's treated as a fahu, and my grandma's the oldest, with some friction in between. There's some family drama involved with that, but for the most part, for those who follow the whole fahu system, when my grandma shows up and my mom shows up, it's the same thing. So there's a lot of due respect given, and they're usually given the presiding position for whatever ceremony, whether it be a birthday, a wedding, a funeral. But that's Tongan tradition, you know. Samoan is different, you know. We're led by a Matai of the family, so. And I'm just more comfortable and more familiar with Samoan. Hey, tease up though. I still rep. Tell you what, just.
For one last thing on the names, like if I ever do have a daughter, my mom blindsided me when I was a kid and made me promise I would name a daughter after her someday. So that one's actually already foregone. If I ever have a daughter named after my mom, so like if she ever sees this, she'll hold me to it.
It's always not. Yeah. Also, shout out to my sister. My second daughter, I gave her my sister's name. Just because I love that kid. I only have one sister, so it's a different dynamic for her growing up with brothers, and then for all of us to be older, and then just this little girl shows up, and my dad just immediately melts to her. That's here nor there, you know. Names, as long as we keep it reasonable and don't go too over the top. I understand. Well, I don't know. What do you guys think? Unique versus normal. Because even though as a parent we're selecting the names, but that kid's got to live with that name. He's got to grow up in a society that's going to be like, you know, what's your name? Tyrell Ignatius Timothy. You know, it's like, come on, man.
If there's anybody that's really unique, I would say is my brother, Vineyard. Mm-hmm. He named his first son Javarsm, Jabarsm, and Javarsm stands for our whole, you know, group of friends. You know, that includes like J stands for Jonathan, A, Akimoa, V is Vineyard, R is your relation, S is Sam, and then A, Andy, and is boy. So he named his son with the first letter of the whole group. You know, so I'm like, man, that's you know, you went unique with that one. And then, you know, there's the other one where you put your name and your girl's name together. And my cousin did that, and he, you know, put his name and his girl's name together, and then they formed the name. And that used to be a thing back then. Like, well, I mean, I think.
Well, yeah, my sister is like that too. Her name's like that. My parents like the name Audrey and Rena, so they put it together, Audrina. Her name's Adrina, but.
Well, it's one of those things too, where like, I think that's cool when people come up with these completely unique names, especially if it means something to them, the parents or the family. Here's something that I thought was interesting, kind of on the subject. I had a family member. I'm not going to say who, so they don't get put on blast immediately.
Oh, put them on blast. Put them on blast.
But like, no. So, have a family member, Samoan, married to Polynesian. They have Afakasi kids, and really wanted to have each of their kids have a Samoan name, and which they did. And but during the naming of one of the kids, they chose a word that they liked and that is a cool sounding name, if you know, especially to those who don't speak Samoan. But it was one of those names that you don't give. I guess like the word was just like has more meaning that they were supposed to. I don't know. It's like you shouldn't use that. That's not a word you just throw out or something like that. Anyway, sorry, I'm being real vague about this, trying to protect identities here.
Yeah, without giving us the name, we need this name.
I'm gonna just say the name. The name was Maliatoa.
Oh,
and for some reason we suddenly get family members weighing in on, oh, is that okay? Is that not okay? This and that. Well, here's the thing. Here's what bothered me about this is that when it comes down to it, the naming of your kid is up to the parents. And it's one of those things where you can give your opinion on what you like or don't like, but at the end of the day, that kid's name is what his parents, that's up to the parents. And so I was like, look, I'm not saying I would have gone that route. I'm not saying I would have given that same name, but I respected my family member and his wife well enough to be like, look, that's your child. And like, that's, and you know, whatever, the family can weigh in on this, but at the end of the day, be ready to accept the name of that kid as whatever the parents decide on. But anyways, the name was eventually abandoned, but like, it was just one of those.
Oh, they didn't go through with it?
No. And
okay.
What do you fellas think on that? Like, do you ever get names where it's like guys who are obviously raised stateside like myself who start giving their kids names in a language that they don't speak, and you can see maybe out of context that it doesn't sit well with you, like no one on the island would give that name or whatever. What do you guys think about that?
In that respect to that specific situation, and to be generalized with it, so when it comes to a lot of these titles, these Matai titles in American Samoa, Western Samoa, you know, I mean, it's a little bit more, especially with us in Manoa. I'm from Manoa, so it's a little bit more tight knit. So these titles are held close to families and lineages and stuff like that. And if you were to go and just name your kid one of the highest ranking titles that you are not even a part of that in that lineage, yeah, that's his name. You have the right to name him his name. But as he grows up and he interacts, and say he's Samoan, and he goes and interacts with Samoans, and you're like, oh wait, what's your name? Okay, what family are you from? What's your last name? And then they go back and you're like, why did your parents name you this? You're not even in this line. You don't have any, you're not entitled to this line whatsoever, yada, yada, yada. And it can be, you know, difficult for the kid growing up, because ultimately that kid has to live through that with the name. You know, yeah, they'll probably get mad at you, but they're gonna be like, hey, you need to go buy something else, you know. And
I almost saw it like that's almost like a Western or American naming convention. Almost like you do see people name their kid King, name their kid Pharaoh.
I mean, yeah, that's,
like I've met people with this, but once again, that's an American naming scheme, and it's like
Caesar.
They're just taking that Western naming scheme, but applying it with Samoan language, and so that's where it's like, you know. It's
Can you
interesting.
imagine it? Somebody named their kid Sweet Manoa.
Well, yeah. And then the other question is, why haven't we met anybody with the name Lucifer? Have you guys ever met anybody with the name Lucifer?
I don't know. I don't trust Lucy's. Lucy's pretty close.
That's the female Lucifer.
Yeah, I don't understand.
No, I see what you're saying.
You know,
I see what you're saying, Nazi.
They're trying to look out for the kid, I guess, in a way. Which, if the opinion falls down and it's something that's beneficial, and you got to look out for the well-being of the kid, like what Johnny was saying, you know, going to the future, I understand. But, you know, I also feel the same way as you do, Spence, where, man, if I'm naming my kid the name that I want to name my kid, man, you know, that you have no business, you know. But I guess that's the reason why social services and all those, you know, put into place to prevent, you know, idiocy, whatever the term is, whatever, anyhow.
Idiocy.
Yeah, there you go.
Idiosyncrasy.
Yeah. That word right there. Anyhow, yeah, I mean, Baliator, you know, honestly, like it could be a name for anybody, but not like, if I would understand if it's given to a Samoan, but if it's oh man, I don't know if I've never given it to another. So you said it was.
What if he was Finnish from Finland?
It would have been Afakasi.
Maliator from Finland.
The kid was going to be Afakasi, and so like, you know, like not look even full on.
Just call him Tua.
Ultimately, this was not even going to be the kid's first name. It was going to be a middle name.
So, okay. So it had been hidden. It had been a secret.
But, you know, it's you know, it's one of those things where it's like, I think, sure, everyone's free to weigh in on their opinion. But at the same time, I'm like, that decision gets made by the parents. And it's like, I'll respect that for any parent, you know.
If they're not Polynesian whatsoever, then I think they can get away with it. But if they are Samoan, I think we're a little bit more harsher on our own people, because it falls into that you should know better.
Right. And it's one of those things where it's like, do you see that joke where it's like, you know, you got dudes who would get like tattoos of like Japanese kanjis and stuff, thinking that it means like, you know, demon dude or something like that, and really it says like water or something.
And like this, like the reverse of that, the Japanese
rando
gets theirs. It says pencil or lamp.
This is one of those things where it's like you roll the dice where it's like, hey, this sounds cool. This sounds cool to those who don't speak the language, or this looks cool to those who don't read the kanji, but like it might be something very basic. I don't know. But you run the risk of like that. So like that's one thing where when I name my kids, I'm going to be kind of careful with that. That's why I look to specific family members to name them after in my mind, because I'm like, no, here is my point of reference. My uncle so-and-so, my cousin so-and-so, etc. But that's all hypothetical for me. So, you know, don't mind me.
Yeah.
I know my dad was big on, plugging in family names, lines, lineages, and Matai titles from our family, so that when they run into, you know, other Samoans, like, oh, what's your name? And then they say their name. They're like, oh, that's from that family over there. Probably one of the relatives from that family. And it was kind of like a big thing to him. So like, but he came up with some weird names. Like I got nephews and nieces, and my dad used their first name was like Greek names, and then the middle name was like the family name, whether it be from my wife's family or my brother's family or my brother's wife's family or our family, stuff like that. So it was, I mean, that's another tradition of naming sense where because like for me, my name Johnny, I'm named after my grandfather, my mom's dad. His name was Johnny Faye Wilson, and so I'm named after him. So I carry his name, Johnny Faye, and so yes, that's my real name. So it's not a nickname. It's not John or Jonathan. It's Johnny. Malo Faye.
Yeah, all I know is if I meet a kid named Malito, he better be able to match my energy when I go.
He better walk up with a hole in the foot.
No, he better be able to meet my energy when I go. Oi lito, sabo. You know.
He's gonna walk in there. You're gonna walk into the 7-Eleven, and he's standing behind the counter. Oi, man, hola, feel mo sungo chan. Yeah, feel my feel ka. He's like, oh, that's the energy. Yeah, from you know,
You know, it's interesting because our last names are very unique, and if I share my last name with somebody, you know, or regular Samoan, they would know, oh, you're from this family, or you're from this side of the island. Oh, you're from Manua, you know, like it's.
So they do that. Oh, yeah,
like,
from that family, huh?
Do you think we brought those names with us from wherever we were, or you know, our last names? You guys, you know, I guess this is a topic now. You know, do you guys think our names we brought it from wherever we came from?
You see, since the beginning of time. You know, back
you mean before
500 BC, the name Johnny was in a small village in Osaka. The name Johnny was running around. No, it's I think some of the, like I said, well, with the relatively accepted history of the Polynesian islands as far as the Matai system is concerned, when they met with the explorers, the Christian missionaries, they found it curious, or that they had two names. You know, they had a first name and a last name. And when it was explained to them that the last name is a surname to denote what family you're from, Samoans, I think the old practice was the only people with names were people with titles, with Matai titles. And then you usually earned your name by something that made you memorable. And sometimes, you know, and that's how it was. And it could be, I mean, I could be wrong or explain it, but yeah. So essentially, when they heard about the surname thing, they decided to they liked the idea and decided to accept some of the bigger Ali'i titles, the paramount chief titles, as their name, as their surname clan, and they started taking those names like the Mawas, the Mangils, the what is it, Pao Pao is another big one, Pali'i. And so, yeah, and then they were use whatever name, their given name, and then they started adopting, especially when they were translating the Bible, they started adopting a lot of biblical names in Samoan and started using those as first names. But yeah, so that's a generalized history. So I mean, when it comes to names, a lot of these major titles, High Talking Chief, High Chief, Paramount Chiefs, these titles have been the ones that have lasted the history the longest. Some of these names are titles. If you go back far enough, you have people that like to keep the culture alive, that keeps the lineages alive. And I know it's starting, especially with the Mormon Church, they're really picking up with genealogy, putting a record down, having a solid tree that people can look at and trace all the way back. So, I mean, it just depends,
Yeah. Before we close it out, I'm gonna ask a question and we'll go around the room. What name stood out to you? It doesn't have to be a Polynesian name. It could be any name that you came across. What name stood out to you throughout your own lifetime until the present day? So for me, I came across someone in boot camp. So you know how they're always saying like Private Smakateli?
Mm-hmm.
There was actually someone named Smakateli. Yeah. There was actually someone named Smakateli. So that's the name that stood out. I'm like, man, they're joking around, but it's actually someone named Smakateli.
He was a schmuck. Private First Class Smakateli reporting his order. Oh my goodness. Poor guy. That's like the guy that freaking his name was Marine. He shows up to boot camp, recruit Marine. You got to cover both your name tapes because you haven't earned the title yet. So, that's the thing. You got to cover the U.S. Marines on your shirt when you're in boot camp until you graduate because you haven't earned the title to be called a U.S. Marine yet. So, if your name is Marine or Sergeant, Private Sergeant,
I remember we had this one. This one was really stupid, but obviously was effective because I still remember it. Like I went to basic in 2005, and there's this guy whose last name was Wood, and everyone just loved having fun with the calling him Private Wood. Here I am, like almost 20 years later, and I'm still remembering Private Wood, and he was always joking that he was going to go get his commission one day so that he could make it to the rank of major, so he could be Major Wood. So, it's the dumbest thing ever, but yeah, I still sit here and wonder this. I wonder if he ever became a major.
Have you guys ever? How you guys you go through boot camp or all the platoons you ever end up in or units you end up in, right? You always have that one Marine or soldier, airman, or whatever sailor that's like the slow bunch. He's just not all there. Fell below the system. I don't know how you get it, but he's got there. So one of mine is at boot camp. This kid was dumb as a box of rocks, but the kid had heart. Great kid. I never forgot him, even though I forgot half the people I went to boot camp with. But his name was Getz, and it was spelled Goetz. And his name was Recruit Getz, and he even talks like he's G2 qualified. But I go out in the great wide world now. I'm graduated. I'm a full-on Marine now, and I'm running into all these other Marines. And I always equate the dumb guy to Getz. And I ran into a Lieutenant Colonel Getz. And I was just like, oh, snap. You can't be dumb because, well, look how high you got. And I was just one of those, like, now every time I see the name Getz, and it's a very unique name. So, Getz, if you see this, love you, bro. But yeah, I've always equated just with the recruit Schmuckatelli. For me, it was Getz because it was recruit Getz, private first class Getz. It's like, hey, more power to you, bro. But there's a lieutenant colonel of you running around, so it can't be a. Wait till that guy hits General Schmuckatelli, then the real jokes are on.
No lie, man. No lie, guys. But I know somebody with the Matai name of UFA. So that's the actual Matai name.
Really?
Hey, could you explain for our listeners what that is? How it sounds like, that word, UFA?
Can you say it? How do you pronounce it?
For educational purposes.
Hey.
It's Ufe.
Ufe.
It's a bad word. It's a Ufa. Actually, I know somebody with them. That's their Matai name, and I don't want to repeat how they got their Matai name, but that's their actual Matai name.
If you know.
And it goes to show what you were saying, Johnny, like how back in the day, like people were getting their names by some ridiculous stuff that they did. So apparently that's how he got his name. His Matai name was through some,
Everybody out of the village.
So that's, like somebody like name was, I know somebody, he said his name was called Bitta because in their family, Bitta was, the bat, and it was passed down generation.
Batman.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit, okay, my nice name. And then I got to meet, UFA. So, oh man. Yeah.
Is it a model Oos or the model Oof?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you really break it down like that, the prime minister, the former prime minister of Samoa, his Matai was Marilingoi.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
are you trying to say something, Johnny?
No, I'm from American Samoa, so
That's low key uncle right there, boy.
Yeah, Uncle Archie. I would fight what I
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Behind the Lava Lava. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Behind the Lava Lava and leave us a review. And thank you for joining us. We hope you found this interview informative and insightful. Until next time, Tofa Soifua.